Welcome to Wisdom Woman podcast. I believe that is in constant change and growth, not in perfection, that we find happiness. In this podcast, I'm going to be talking with top performance professionals about tools, techniques, new ideas on how to develop your communication skills, use your creative thinking, be a team player, manage your tasks like a pro, be motivated, become an expert on relationships, and a problem solver. Everything you need to be 5 stars in all areas of your life. My intention is to help you develop your skills and find balance between your professional and personal life. My name is Betina Pflug, and I hope I can be your trusted advisor. We are here today to one more insightful episode of Wisdom Woman. I'm your host, Betina Pflug, and today's episode is titled Trust and Accountability, Key Foundation for Business Success. Why is that? Because everybody or work for a business or owns a business. So understanding the foundation of a successful business is super important. And I met Becky Magnotta at IFC Colorado. She's doing so much to help our chapter in Colorado to evolve. She's a volunteer, very dedicated, and she has a background experience on being an entrepreneur. She will tell the story about her family and how they've been working in Colorado for such a long time. And together with her entrepreneur knowledge, she also have been more than 30 years involved in the corporate world. And she can bring this expertise to talent, leadership, and organization development. Right now, she's working as an executive coach. I really, really admire her work. And we have so much in common, Becky. We love animals.
Yes.
So start telling us a little bit about your passion for animals and your work with that nonprofit. I was so impressed that we matched even on that, Becky.
Well, it's interesting. One of the first jobs that I had out of college was with the American Humane Association, their hearing dog program. So I think it's a combination of loving animals. I grew up with lots of dogs and cats and stuff, but also just what can we do to help others? So helping dogs, train dogs to help people with hearing impairments was one of the first things. And then freedom service dogs really, I loved finding out about them because they also saved dogs from shelters at that point and then trained them to help people with mobility issues or PTSD or actually children on the spectrum. And it was truly a labor of love. It was a very special time.
Oh, Becky, I really admire this work. And I did this myself. I was helping a nonprofit in Brazil called Alliance of Animals. And they had more than 1,500 dogs waiting for adoption. I said, oh my gosh, if I even could learn how to bring these dogs to a new house, behaving well, because those dogs who live in the streets, they don't know how to really behave in a house environment. So I adopted one when I arrived in Colorado. She came from Alabama, and she was super scared of small spaces, scared of males. And I said, no, I'm going to train her to be a therapy dog. And it took me like a year and a half, but I didn't have a clue how to start. So I joined an association who trains dogs for blind people as a volunteer. And I was there watching how they train the dogs for blind people, and I learned all the techniques. I said, okay, now I'm ready. I'm going to train my own dog. Because the dogs for blind people, it's so difficult to train. After 6 months, you lose them. You have to give them to the person.
It truly is a labor of love, the people that are doing that foster. And I think they've got to really be thinking about the bigger purpose of what they're going to do. But yeah, you've got it. It's that servant mentality, isn't it?
Yes, I'm working my way. I will be able to do that in the future after Bella is gone now. I train her. I really like going out to hospitals,
Mhm.
mental facility places are the best. You know, seeing her taking people out of their shells and smiling again. It's such a nice work. And
Yeah.
hopefully I will find something to do here in Australia. She just arrived 10 days ago from United States, so I'm rehabilitating her here. So,
Oh my goodness.
and how about this passion that you have for coaching? And can you tell us this transition from
Oh,
the corporate world to the coaching area?
yeah. I, you know, I think we all come to coaching in different ways. And uh, my career overall was, for the most part, going really, really well. But then I hit a wall. I, uh, when I first moved from being in sales and marketing, I went into leadership development. I didn't know a thing about it, but I had a director who had a lot of background. I had a colleague who had a lot of background, and an employee who worked for me, a lot of background. They got me involved with the Association for Talent Development. I was learning a lot of stuff. And then within 2 months, all three of them resigned. And I'm running this program by myself. I'm really a rookie. I don't know what I'm doing. And finally, they brought a new boss in for me. Great gentleman. And he and I are beginning to work really well together. But then I was taking a vacation over Christmas, and the first day of vacation, my job was posted. So after vacation, I come into my boss and I'm going, Matt, is there a problem? And he's going, no. And I said, well, then what's this? I could tell he was in shock. And he said, I'll get back to you. I found out later the head of HR had wanted me to be, we had a layoff in November, and he wanted me to be part of it. And Matt had refused, saying, Becky's the one, she's been keeping the wheels on this bus, and she's learning, she's doing great. And if you let her go, I'm resigning. And got away with it then. But then in December, this head of HR said, no, I don't want her in our department anymore. And he told Matt, you either demote her, fire her, or get her a job elsewhere in the company, but she's not going to have her current job. So I ended up finding a role in leadership development in our call centers at a significant cut in pay. And at that point, I was in my early 50s, and I called a good friend of mine who I still work with. And I said, James, I think I've got to come to the conclusion I've gone as high as I can in my career. I need to just let go of it and just accept where I am. And he turned to me and he said, Becky, that's crap. You need a coach. So I got a coach, and what she did for me to help me really understand who I was, my strengths, my values, was amazing. And after that evil head of HR was fired. And the next one came and said, I've heard about you. I want you back.
Oh
But
my God.
okay, how's it going to be different? And from there, I ended up being responsible for leadership development, talent development, organizational development in the company. So, but I also knew I wanted to do what that woman did for me. So I got my coaching certification, and I was also able to build an internal coaching program at our company. We had 5 coaches who worked for me, and we were helping people. But eventually, I think in 2019, I just thought, when you're like in that kind of a role, it's almost like you're more of a, you're doing the strategy, and you're telling other people this is what we're going to do, and they're doing the work. And I decided I wanted to do the work. So that's when I decided to go out on my own and start my own business. And
Well, that's right. I saw here on your website how you can help people, and this comes from a real experience place. You can help people start a new role as a manager. You can help them to work to get promoted, to find a new job, or if they decide to leave the current organization and find a new role through disappointment because they've been there for sure. Resolve conflicts in teams and build this leadership ability. I'm so impressed. I have to tell you a story.
Yeah.
I learned with this as well. So I was working for an international company in Brazil. They wanted to launch a franchise in Brazil, an American franchise, and they hired me to be the general manager of this project. I had a director that really trusted on me, and we went to United States for 3 months to be trained, me and my 2 assistants and my boss. And we learned everything. We came back, but the owner of the company was very unstable emotionally. So instead of taking us 6 months to open the first franchise, took us 2 years. And sometimes he had the money to pay, sometimes he didn't. So my boss quit. And they didn't pay us for 4 months. And almost everybody quit. But I stayed without receiving any payment. I stayed in the company. I was there. I survived. They hired a new boss, and then we lost some assistants. So we sent new people to United States to be trained. But I was a female, and the corporate preferred to have a general manager that was a male. So when we were ready to launch after 2 years, after everything I did, they put me in the night shift and promoted a boy to be my boss. And I was so disappointed because I passed through so much. I said, oh my gosh. And for me, it was hard to work night shift, closing the store at 1 a.m. And after all the training, everything I did, just because I was a female. And our franchise, oh my gosh, I was so disappointed at the time. I said, why are you doing this to me? But you know what? I quit and I decided to do an MBA. I said the hospitality university I did wasn't enough for me to get where I wanted. I said, I'm going to aim high. So I enrolled myself in an MBA, 100% in English. I couldn't speak perfect English. And I said, okay, and this pushed me to move forward. So I totally hear you, Becky. When something bad happens to us, we feel so bad at the time, but it's to push you out of our nest, out of our comfort zone, isn't it?
Yeah. It's, what's so interesting is looking back at those, because when you're in the middle of that, it's horrible. I mean, you've got grief, you've got anger, you've got fear, you've got all these emotions, but then looking back at it, it makes you stronger. I mean, that resilience.
That's why I think, sorry to interrupt, of trust and accountability that you have and I have, this is so important for you to run a business or to be inside of a business. And how would you define this trust and why it's so important in a business?
Oh, well, I mean, trust is everything. You think about it, it's so critical, whether it's our personal relationships, our relationships with employees, with customers, with vendors. I think it's absolutely at the root of everything. That if you can't trust, and from there you can't feel safe, everything is like walking on eggshells. Everything is so much harder. And I think the one thing about trust is I think it can feel really squishy. What really is trust? And I know we did a lot of work on trust in the company that I was at. And I've studied trust a lot, but what I've kind of come up with after studying it are a couple people that I really like. Charles Feltman. He's got something that he called the 4 pillars of trust. And I've taken it a little bit, changed it a little bit in the language I think that works for me. And it's like if you think of a table with 4 legs, there are 4 areas. Like, first of all, authentic. Are you authentic? Do you have a hidden agenda or not? Or do I believe you're who you are? Then the next one is accountability, that I know you're going to do what you say you're going to do. Then competent. You know your stuff, and you also know what you don't know. But then the 4th one is caring, that you care about me as much as I care about you. And I love that model because it's so simple, and people can really think about, I have a relationship that's not trusting. Okay, where's the wobble? Which of those 4 things are not working, and how can you work on them? I think it just makes such a huge difference.
And I think accountability in a work environment is so crucial nowadays because myself, I have a family, and the majority of the people working, they're not single, they have a family to take care of. And sometimes things happen. You have to miss work to go to the doctor with your kid, see COVID, how many things could happen with our health. And how can you still be accountable with all those changes around us?
Oh boy. It's still, I think, thinking longer term of what's the goal. I think for all of us being successful, what are we trying to accomplish? And thinking about accountability, nobody wants to be held accountable. But if we think of it more as ownership, and again, that's caring, that I feel I own my performance, and I own my part of us as a team being successful, then we can work these things out. And accountability.
Maybe preparing your job, thinking that someday someone will need to perform your tasks without you being there. If you prepare yourself to be promoted, having all the process well established and being able to share. For example, if you're not able to be there one day at your work, can someone jump in your computer and execute what you were supposed to? Have you prepared everything in a way that someone else can run the show for you? And then comes the trust. If you trust that you're good enough, you trust that someone else could do it, you can hold yourself accountable, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. And just thinking about like delegation, which is what we're kind of talking about here, and feedback, they all fit in together in that ownership. And for people to really learn how to delegate and examine, if they don't delegate, why don't they delegate? And sometimes it's that they don't know how to delegate. I think people a lot of times think delegation is giving somebody this whole thing to do, where maybe when you're first starting, how do you help them understand what it is? How do you really, with accountability, Brene Brown has a great saying about paint done, meaning what does it look like at the end? What are we working towards? What are the deadlines? Are we really clear on what we're doing? And I think a lot of times we aren't, and that causes even more confusion and makes it harder for people to be accountable if they don't really know what it is they're supposed to be doing.
I love what you said. And talking about women in leadership positions, they often face unique challenges. In your perspective, what do you think a woman leader encounters and how they can overcome those challenges?
Oh my goodness. It's funny at the beginning when you were talking about what happened to you with that one role. It breaks my heart because things like that happen so much. McKinsey and leanin.org have been doing studies, and they did one in 2022, that one of the first things is the very first promotion to a manager, for every 100 men that get promoted, only 87 women are, and only 82 women of color. So one of the first things is just companies starting to promote women at the beginning. And then there are these other things that once you have a seat at the table, and I'm sure you'll agree that you have coached people on every single one of these things, but it could be they aren't taken seriously. They're told that they're aggressive or difficult. They aren't heard, and they're forced to be inauthentic. So really, imposter effect, it's alive and well for women. I've coached women on all of those things. And how do we help them learn how to have that seat at the table, how to build allies, how to have presence, and how to be confident in what they're doing and thinking about body language, facial expressions, how to speak up, how to be self-aware. So watching what impact am I having on other people and knowing what my triggers are so that I am staying calm in the face of the storm, which, let's face it, more and more we are constantly in the face of the storm at work. And how do I do that? And how do I gain allies so that my voice is being heard? Yeah, there's a lot there.
Yes, and I think having a coach throughout this process of building your career and also being an entrepreneur, because being an entrepreneur is a very solo, it's hard. We are entrepreneurs ourselves, and it's hard not having anyone to talk about your struggles. So if you have someone neutral that can really help you identify your limiting beliefs, overcome your limiting beliefs, create a plan, and be an accountable partner makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
And also to help you build a team. Do you have any tips on how to build a cohesive team?
Oh boy, I think the big thing is really, again, thinking about safety and trust so that people feel comfortable to be able to talk and go back and forth. They aren't afraid to tell you if they disagree with you, that they can have that conversation, and that, again, we're clear. I think one of the big things when you're building a team is you've got to be clear and confident. Where are we going? What's the mountain we're going after? That is, I think, one of the biggest things. And then just, again, accountability, self-awareness, trust, making sure that you're open so that people can be their best selves. And, oh my goodness, we talked about it a little bit at the very, very beginning, but servant leadership, that you are there to serve the team. You are there to build them. It's not about you. And I think as coaches, when we're at our best, it's not about us at all. It's all about our client and what am I doing to serve them and to be there for them.
That's wonderful. And your work, when you're working with clients, what are some common obstacles and barriers they face when it comes to trust and accountability in the work environment, and how you help them overcome those challenges?
I think one of the biggest things a lot of times is trusting themselves. Also knowing, some of the things I like to, it's not a one size fits all, but a lot of times, do people know what their purpose is? Why are you put on the face of this earth? what do you really want with your precious life? And what are your values? Because a lot of times, if we aren't aware of those, we can't set boundaries for ourselves. Or a lot of times we're having conflicts and we don't know why. Because a lot of times it's because a value has been breached. I think those, and then knowing how you get in your way. Positive intelligence. I am very, very pleased that I was one of the first people to get certified in that. And I use it a lot. And one of the things they do in positive intelligence is looking at your saboteurs. To these voices in our head, starting from the way we judge ourselves, judge others, judge circumstances. And a lot of times I can be coaching somebody for the first time and I hear the way they're talking about themselves. And how do we have empathy for ourselves? How do we forgive ourselves? How do we know that we're going to make mistakes and it's okay? None of us are perfect. And just knowing that if we're going to mess it up, we need to clean it up. And how do we help people do that? So there's like a whole spectrum of different things that we're trying to do to help people know who they are and to love themselves.
Yeah, that's the first step. If they are trustworthy to themselves, if they really talk through with them. But developing self-awareness is an important aspect of personal and professional growth too. How can individuals cultivate more self-awareness and why it's so valuable in the leadership development?
Okay, 4th of July, I just watched Hamilton again. Talk less, smile more. Talk less, listen, just really listen. I think a lot of times we talk so much and we aren't listening to what's going on around us. That is a big one. And knowing your triggers. What is it that's going to upset you and how do you prepare yourself? So if you are triggered, that you're going to remain calm and not have that amygdala hijack, but really calm yourself down so that you can really think and move forward from there. So those are probably, and again, it's, what I love about all this stuff, it's not like a cookbook that you got a cup of this, you got a teaspoon of that, all these. It's so different. It's different for everybody. And as coaches, we're sitting there listening for clues and we're watching shifts in energy, body language, and trying to hear patterns when people are saying things that you can tell are limiting their thinking. It's either this or that. Is it? What else could it be? It's all those different things, which I think the creativity in the work that we do is what makes it so intriguing.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's why I created a planner to help my clients. I call it Witchy Planner. And inside this planner, there is a chapter where I teach people how to track their emotional triggers. And what I explained there, it's life happening in a spiral. We are in a small spiral. And once we learn something, we have a bigger challenge. Then we learn something else. Then we have an even bigger challenge. So what we need to do when we are aware of something that triggers us, we need to write down the situation that happened. Write it down. Oh, this happened with me, without putting any of your observations. Then you just describe the emotional you felt once this happened. Then you write down the reaction you had, because this is automatic. Once you're triggered, you have this reaction. Then you write down the ideal response you should have for this situation. And just think, the next time this happens, you just journal it again. Okay, another situation came, I was triggered, that's the emotion I had, that's how I reacted. So the first step is to be aware of your triggers. The second one is being able not to react. And after a while, you'll be able to act differently. But just bringing self-awareness to your work environment, to your life environment, that you will be able to change. So triggers are very important because they want to tell you something.
Oh, yeah, they are emotions speak. They are telling you lots and lots of things. And you're right, the somatic, where are you feeling it in your body? I know I clench, that I can tell when I'm getting mad because I start clenching. And that happens before, boom, fireworks. And for me, once I figured that out and then started thinking, what was it that caused me to do that? It's almost like your body knows sometimes before your head knows. It's fascinating.
And can you share us some success stories or example you witnessed that the positive impact of trust and accountability in transforming individuals or organizations?
Yeah, I think especially some of the work that I've done both when I was in the corporate world and also I've been doing since then. I love doing work that's creating highly effective teams. And one of the things that I've done with that work is a survey at the beginning that helps them see with different aspects. Where are they as far as being effective? Like trusting each other, being able to have conflict, being able to give each other feedback. Do I feel safe? Are we accountable? Are we accomplishing things? Stuff like that. And there's a company I worked with fairly recently that I was called in because they felt that the team overall was very dysfunctional. And the first thing they had me do was interview everybody on the team individually. So I had kind of an idea of what was going on, but at the same time, I felt like the story of the blind man and the elephant, because it's like everybody was saying something different. It's like it's a tree, it's a snake, it's a spear, whatever. And then we did the survey and could see that there were some real issues. And we took them through a workshop, a one-day workshop, and met with them every month for 3 months after that. And we talked about trust. We talked about behaviors that they agreed to. We talked about accountability. We talked about their purpose. What was their purpose really as a team? And about a couple weeks ago, we redid the survey and it had improved by 34%. So thrilled with that one. And just knowing too that the work they're doing together is they're improving all the time. We're talking now about what can we do next with them. But I think that's a lot of it is just people knowing, what does trust really mean? What does accountability really mean? What are acceptable behaviors? And purpose, why are we a team? Why are we working together? What are we working towards? What's important to us as a team? Yeah, those.
That's an example. And one of your areas of expertise is positive intelligence. Could you explain what it entails and how it can benefit an organization?
Well, positive intelligence really is, again, how do we get in our way? So talking about those saboteurs. So what are the ways? And again, what we're talking about is how the ways were triggered. But what's cool about it is we can understand different things that might trigger somebody. So for instance, my saboteurs are hyperachiever. So I've worked on it a lot, but I know when I was in the corporate world, it's like the next promotion, the next prize, the next gig, the next this, the next that. Another one for me is pleaser. I want people to like me. And as a coach, that's difficult because as a coach, there are a lot of times I need to tell people difficult things. And if I'm too much in a pleaser mode, I may not do it because I don't want to hurt their feelings or whatever. But knowing this about your colleagues can help you understand and can help you support each other. So for instance, somebody might say to me, Becky, you want us to work towards this goal. Is that the hyperachiever talking? Or do we think it's really going to help us overall? So I think it helps us understand each other better. A DISC is another one. Understanding different people's styles of how they work together can really make a difference in, it's not someone who's a high D or direct. It's not that they're being a jerk. That's just how they are, that they're direct and they want to get things accomplished.
Yeah, this really works. I applied a training on the leadership of Better Business Bureau using a personality test, made a huge difference in a team of 25 people, understanding their strengths, understanding where are their blind spots, and understanding that a team that complements each other makes a huge difference. If you have someone that thinks different than you, you have to see this in a positive way because you can learn from this person a lot. So
yeah,
that's a very, very important thing.
And it helps us not to have blind spots. I partner with a couple of people, and one person especially, she and I are very, very different, and I love working with her because she sees things I don't, and I see things that she doesn't, and it works out really, really well.
Wow. And I think we touched a lot about having a coach, and you have an important role at ICF, the Coaching Association. Can you explain to our listeners the difference between a coach who doesn't have any kind of certification with ICF, the ones that have ACC, PCC, and MCC? What's the difference? Because we see all those letters after their names that we don't know what that means. If you can explain, that would be nice.
Ooh, I don't know if I'll be able to get it 100% right, but from the beginning, the main thing that people need to know about an ICF certified coach is that they have gone through extensive training, ongoing education to keep their craft up. So ICF certified coaches, and we have to get recertified every 3 years. We need to take so many hours of training all the time. So you've got somebody that really knows what they're doing. Another part of ICF certification is the code of ethics. That is really important. And part of that is confidentiality and just what we can and can't do as coaches to make people feel safe so that they can trust us. Another piece, I think, with being ICF certified is that you really know the difference between coaching and therapy. So there are things as a coach, I look at my clients as being whole and healthy, and they can find their solutions. What I'm responsible for is pointing out sometimes the way they're thinking or asking questions so that they are coming up with their solution. Where in therapy, I'm more, there's something broken here, there's something wrong here, and we need to figure out how to fix that. I'm not fixing anybody. They're whole. And it's just a matter of Sometimes we just need to adjust the way we're thinking about things. Now, the different levels. ACC is a associate certified coach. For that, you need at least 100 hours of coaching to get the ACC. Then the PCC, the professional certified coach, I believe it's 2,000 hours.
600.
So, what is it?
600 hours.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I'm glad you know that. I knew, I got mine 2 years ago, so I couldn't remember that. And then the MCC, is the MCC 3,000 hours? Do you know?
I know it's a lot. I don't know the hours, but it's a lot of not just hours of coaching where you get experience, but the trainings. You have to have such an amount of training to be able to hold, and there is a test that we go through. So it's very serious. If you're looking to hire someone that has those accreditations, be sure that this person is well equipped to help you out. And Becky here is a PCC. That's why I wanted her to say that. She really did her work to get here. And can you share with our audience how they can get in touch with you and how they can learn more about your leadership development offer?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple different things. One is in LinkedIn. I'm pretty sure I'm the only Becky Magnotta out there. So please connect with me. And when you do, include a note that you were listening to this podcast. Then also my website, which is homesteadcoaching.com. So you can find out more about me on my website. And then my calendar, which is calendly.com/Becky-Homestead. So those would be some ways to get in touch with me.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us in this insightful episode of Wisdom Woman with Becky Magnotta. We trust that we have discussed today valuable things for you to be a very trustful and accountable person in your work environment. If you want to go deep into your role and explore additional resources to support your journey, I encourage you to explore Becky's background, or you can contact me as a coach as well. We both work with team building, and we will be more than happy to support you on your journey. Once again, thank you so much for being part of our Wisdom Woman community, and stay tuned for more empowering episodes. Thank you, Becky. You're awesome, and thank you for sharing your knowledge today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored, and this was really delightful.
Thank you for listening to Wisdom Woman Podcast. To hear past and future episodes, please subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast channel. We appreciate your reviews. To give us suggestions for future show topics, please write to us at podcast@witty.tech. If you're interested in having me as your trusted advisor, schedule a strategic coaching session on my website, www.witty.tech.